What's up guys, Aaron here from MyLab. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to squat better. Make sure to hit like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell for more videos. If you guys don't know me, I've been a personal trainer for over a decade and I've spent most of my adult life trying to become a better squatter. Now this pursuit has taken me all over the world, trying to learn from some of the best in order to get better. So I've worked with leading spine, low back pain expert, Dr. Stu McGill. I've worked with world record powerlifter, Chris Doven, amongst many others. And that's what's gotten me to this point where I could be talking to you about how to make your squat better today. So in today's video, we're gonna be going over some tips and tricks to help you find your ideal squat setup. And then we're gonna finish the video with my 4 key points that are gonna give you a better squat. We should start off by talking about the hip joint. So hip joint, you got your femur, you got your acetabulum. They come together, it's your hip joint. Now, not everybody's hips are built the same. Your hips are probably different than mine. There's some trends, but yeah, not everyone's gonna have the same squat stance. So don't think you have to squat like me or like anybody else. We gotta find the right squat width and depth for you. So the best way to find out what your squat stance should be is by doing a hip scour test. You can do this with a partner where they're gonna be articulating and moving your leg around, but you can also do it by yourself, which is what I'm gonna show you right here. Here's what it's gonna look like to hip scour yourself. You're gonna lie down, pull up a leg, and we're just gonna move it back and forth, kind of circularly. You can see, this is a great example of my Celtic hips. They don't want to really come up much more past parallel. But if I go out, right about there is where I have the least amount of resistance. So I'm gonna continue holding on to this and I'm gonna pull up my opposite leg so they're matched. And then if we look up, yeah, I got about 1.5 feet between my heels, about 2 feet in between my knees. So this is gonna be the best stance that I can take in my squat. That's gonna be the most ergonomic for me. All right, so now that we have my ideal squat width, now we're gonna see what my ideal depth is, okay? So we're gonna take that position that we just found. So for me, it's 1.5 feet between my heels, about 2 feet between my knees. We're gonna go down on all fours, forearms on the ground. We're gonna be slightly above parallel. We're gonna get a nice neutral spine, diaphragmatic breath, breathe into the core, and then I'm gonna sit down until I start to lose my back. So you see if I go all the way down, it rounds. This is butt winking if you're doing it in an actual squat. So I'm not gonna be able to get to that super deep ass to grass depth. But what I can do is get slightly below parallel and then come back up again. Great, so if you're able to do that, congratulations. Your hips aren't the issue. It could be something else that's causing you grief in the squat. So the next thing we wanna look at is what your upper body is doing, which is super, super important when it comes to squatting. So a good test for this is to go like you're choking and take a deep breath in. Notice how my hands don't move. That's because I'm breathing using my diaphragm, breathing into my belly, and getting a good brace when I do it. What happens with most people when they breathe in deeply is they go like this. You notice how my hands come up? Okay, let's look at that from the side. So if I breathe right up into my chest is flaring up, my low back is rounding, which is causing a litany of issues. So we're gonna think about some planes being here, all right? So we're gonna have one in line with the rib cage, one in line with the pelvis. As I breathe in and flare my rib cage up, I'm then pointing my pelvis down, which is creating an excessive lordotic curve of my low back. This can cause back pain. It's also not a strong position. If you think of a skyscraper, it's stacked straight up and down. It is not like this jigsaw that's curving back and forth. It's not a super strong position. Another example I'd like to use here is the beer can example. So if you have an empty can of beer, pop, whatever, and you try and crush it, nothing's gonna happen. But if there's a little indentation in it and you crush it, the can's gonna get crushed. That can in this example is your spine. So we wanna keep the core as cylindrical as possible and you wanna be fully bracing throughout. So the first thing you're gonna do in order to squat better with the abs and with this bracing is I want you to take your thumbs, you're gonna jab them right into your obliques, and I want you to breathe in and push out your gut like you're a great big fat guy, okay? So we're gonna breathe in, push out. Breathe in, push out. There's more to it than that. That's probably a different video in and of itself, but for today's purposes, so long as you can diaphragmatically breathe, push out, create a nice canister and a strong core brace, that's gonna be good enough to squat. So I mentioned 4 big tips earlier. That was tips 1 and 2 pushed together. Number 1 is you're gonna be drawing down. And when I say draw down, I want you to take your sternum and draw it down to your pelvis. This will prevent you from flaring up. A bonus way to think about this, I want you to take your glutes, squeeze them as hard as you can, take your quads and squeeze them as hard as you can, and you'll notice it's gonna be impossible for me to really extend back anymore. You hear a lot of cueing in squats that's, cottage cheese butt, squeeze your glutes at the top. If I squeeze my glutes and there's a slight bend in my knee, I can move around all the live long day in an unsupported position. But if I'm flexing the quads and I'm flexing the glutes, I'm not moving anywhere. So it's a good way to start the exercise as a part of that draw down cue. It's not only we taking down the sternum, but we're flexing the glutes and quads to keep them flexed. Step 2 is breathe and brace. So we're flexed, we're squeezed, and then we're gonna get that brace. So we're getting tight. The third tip that we're gonna do is your feet. So the feet are super important in the squat. Think about it, right? There's only one place where force transfer can happen when you're squatting, and that's your foot into the ground. Now, if your foot's gnarled up and wobbly, it's not gonna be a great squat. We want a nice wide base of support that you can then push as much force through the ground as possible. If you have a gnarled up foot, a really good video to watch in order to fix this is our video on foot love, which is gonna help mobilize the feet. I'll put a link to that in the description below. Do that if you're having a hard time with your feet. Conceptually, with your foot, I like to think of it as a bird's talon. So you got your big toe, you got your little toe, and you got your heel, all right? And those 3 points of contact, and I guess it's not just the toes, it's the ball underneath them as well. You got those 3 points of contact, and I want you to grab onto the ground with them. Think about a falcon pulling out a fish from the river or something, right? We wanna grab onto the floor. Another helpful mnemonic that I use, it might not resonate with you, is I pretend I'm a lemur and I'm sitting in a tree and I'm holding on to the tree branch with my feet. But whatever you're thinking of, you wanna have an active foot. So we're gonna take those feet, we're gonna root them into the ground like a nice oak tree or something, and then we're going to twist the floor apart with them. Twisting the floor apart, it's gonna take your leg and it's gonna externally rotate it, okay? This is very important because a big common fault that you see in the squat is people's knees knocking together. This is bad under load. It can cause pain. It can cause knee injuries. It's gonna cause a weaker squat as well. So you don't wanna have that happen. So by constantly thinking of twisting out and externally rotating the hip, it's gonna assure that the knee's tracking properly. We've drawn down. We've braced the core. We've rooted the feet into the ground. The last component of your squat is what your back, and most specifically what your lats are doing. This is important when you're doing a bodyweight squat, but it's not as important as to when you have the bar on your back. So I'll illustrate that to you here. So when you're setting up on the bar, it's very important that you try and maintain a straight wrist. If you maintain a straight wrist, it's gonna give you good pulling power to pull and try and break the bar over your back. So break the bar over the back is the 4th mnemonic cue that I like to use that really helps the squat. Imagine you're doing a lat pull down, okay? So reaching up, pulling down, that's gonna roughly be your width. So for me, I walk to the bar, and it's pretty wide. You'll see people that gravitate closer and closer and closer. What happens when that goes on your back is it breaks the wrist. And unless you've got a very strong back to support that, it's not worth it. For most people, you wanna go a bit wider and you wanna be able to keep the wrist straight. So yeah, for me, it's right out here. We're gonna pull down, get that bar into the back. I'm active with my hands. We said before, purpose and intent is important throughout. So we don't wanna have it broken. This is relaxed. I'm actively pulling, okay? And I'm gonna be pulling throughout. It's best to pull through your pinky fingers. It's gonna get a little bit more lat, but so long as you got a straight wrist and you're pulling down, that's good. So as we come up, it's staying. If you let this go and it breaks, what usually happens is people then push this into them like I'm doing right now. This isn't good. This is gonna cause you to fall forward on the squat. So in order to try and stay upright, pull down. This is another cue that's going to, let me put this back. This is another cue that's going to allow you to lift more, right? Because if you're using your lats, which are a nice big strong muscle group to help support you in the squat, you're able to squat that much more. Okay, so to finish off this video today, I want to show you some examples of what a good squat and what a bad squat looks like. So here with body weight, this is what a good one should look like. So you can notice I checked my brace beforehand, just to make sure that's there. It's a little bit of a pre-trip check. Knees are tracking nicely, feet look solid. I'm breathing in at the top. Hands coming out is a good counterbalance. Is a good way to stay upright in a bodyweight squat. Bit of where those lats come in. And here's a sloppily done one. So you should see pretty immediately the knees starting to wobble. And that's just because my feet aren't rooted at all. I am a lot deeper here, but it's way less supported and there's way less purpose and intent between every squat that I do. It's just kind of going through the motions. This is not what you want. So here's a good one from the side. Again, checking my brace again. Coming down, right below parallel. Squeezing the glutes at the top. Spine is staying neutral as I come down. It's important to note that neutral is a range. So if it's not exactly a straight line, that's fine because the spine does have a natural curve to it. And it shouldn't be that curved though. So here's a sloppily done one. You can see my back's really rounding at the bottom. This is called butt winking. Don't want that. All right, so here's the back squat. Before I even lift it up, I'm going through all my cues to make sure that I'm solid when I'm stepping back. Good 3 steps back. Re-cueing again, getting a good deep brace. Pushing my sternum back into the bar. That'll help keep you upright. Another good brace through again. You can see my stomach kind of push out as I'm going through the brace. Wrists are staying straight throughout, really trying to pull down and break the bar over my back. And then here one last time, breathing in again, bracing again, drawing down, really squeezing the glutes and quads, and pressing up from while slower up. And here is a sloppy one. You can see just from the setup, it's a lot sloppier. There's no real intent being put into unracking the bar. Looking up, wrists are bending. And again, I'm getting deeper here, but you can even tell from this front angle that my back's rounding a bit. Wrists are breaking, pushing the bar into my neck, and a lot more knee wobble. So don't do it like this. Do it like I did before.